Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to call the Town of Montgomery IDA meeting to order for December 14th. I'm joined here by board members John Dixon, Matt Stoddard, myself, Jeff Christ, Tom Jones, and our executive director, Connor Eckert. And we have Rick and Ashley here from our council. Thank you for all being here. And Billy Iverson on the live stream. Agendas are available for anyone who would like them. Our first item is consideration of the November 8th minutes, meeting minutes. Any additions, corrections, motion to accept those by the board?
I make that motion.
Motion by John Dixon, thank you. Second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Tom Jones, very good. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. And at this time, as is customary for this board, to welcome public comments for items on the agenda. Would anyone from the public like to make a comment today? You good? John, you raising your hand?
Under 7, old, other than, or old business,
Um,
unless you want to incorporate.
you should yeah, I would ask you to do it now, if you're good.
You got it, thank you.
There's no microphone.
Yeah,
There's no mic here, Billy. We could give them ours. Oh, it's little.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Okay, thanks, Billy.
High tech.
It doesn't sound as loud as it should be.
no, it's not working.
It was,
Is there a switch on there, or just put the switch on?
this is a test, John.
Everybody hear me? Nope.
I think a little bit.
All right, obviously we gotta keep our masks on while we're indoors. Thank you, Governor. I know I have a time limitation, but I have to address your November 8th meeting, where your board voted on the Walden Construction LLC or business issues. There was a couple of things that I would like to bring to the board. First of all, Mrs. Chris, when you found out that nobody was interference from obviously the village of Walden, our date was set for Tuesday, November 9th. I did consult with Connor Eckert, and obviously I did see the notice in there, but we were tied up in other issues outside the village. So this is the reason why I wasn't present. And we all know, the whole board knows that we had great interest in this project, and we're definitely disenchanted on the process. And we're gonna, obviously, we're still in dissension of the vote. Obviously, the vote was voted on. Just on a couple issues, when I came before you on our first initial meeting, I asked that there would be zero issues with this project. No pilot, no tax, land use tax, no sales tax, and no mortgage recording taxes. I sat before you and I pleaded. You know, this is the village of Walden. We are small. We're almost 7,000 people. We don't have too many ratables, and we don't have Amazon or Medline behind our backyards. So, again, we passed the resolution, and we have to side with that. But there is a couple issues with the resolution, as I read it. First of all, Mr. Jones, I appreciate you voting the dissension of the commercial issue of the project. I sat on the planning board, I sat on the board when we came up to this project, and this was supposed to be residential, not commercial. Now, we can play word games with what commercial is and what residential is, but the Village of Walden, when we pushed it to the planning board, this is supposed to be residential, not commercial. Secondly, I noted in, I believe, A7 on your resolution, you miscalculated the age. According to our local law that the Village of Walden Board of Trustees passed, local law 3 of 2020, it was 55 and above, not 50 and above, obviously. So I'm here for the Village of Walden. I'm here to ask the board to kind of repeal your process. I know they're starting, or they have started construction at that site, but those two big issues there are pretty defective in your resolution on this project. I ask that as members of a board, as I am, and I would like to see some resolution, whether or not we meet again with the applicant, and try to forge through this issue. Again, the Village of Walden is not against the project. It check marks our comprehensive plan. So all I ask from the board itself is that you relook at this and get back to us and see if we can come to a resolution. Thank you.
Thank you, John. And I apologize for the meeting change, and apologize that we didn't reach out to you specifically. I was under the impression we had, but I realize now that didn't happen.
Thank you.
Don Berger. Oh, yes, one sec, Don. Ashley? Maybe you could pass her yours, Tom, and we'll switch this one over if it'll go that far. I don't know.
Just to weigh in on the one comment about the age restriction, so regardless of what this board's resolution states, the applicant is bound by the village's law, so the age restriction is whatever set in that law, so that you can't override what the requirement is by the village.
It was just a general description of the project that you included that in. It wasn't a directive as to who is or is not permitted.
Obviously, it's a resolution that has been passed, that has been entered in, obviously, IDA Montgomery into the books. What I want to use is it's etched in stone. One could be forgiven, including that people at 50 years old can, bring it to some form of legal issues where it's 50 and above, and we're contradicting the Village of Walden.
It can't contradict it, all right? This board has no authority to override your police powers, your ability to draft local laws and define what the appropriate age is. So yours, the village will always obtain. This was obviously a mistake as to what it was. It was in the description. It carries no consequence whatsoever. The decision was going to be no different whether it was 50 or 55. That was not part of the bases for this board, and it was simply, obviously, a mistake. But it carries with it, that mistake carries with it no consequences. It doesn't vest anybody with any legal rights whatsoever. I sincerely doubt that anybody moving in would look to the resolution of the IDA versus the code of the Village of Walden, but the applicant clearly has no rights whatsoever to allow somebody who's 50 if your requirement is 55.
It's not the applicant, it's the prospective residents.
Right.
Can use, obviously, it's a legal document, obviously.
But that's what I'm saying, is that although it is a public document that was filed as to an action of this board, that part of it carries no consequence with respect to somebody saying, oh, I have a right to go in because it said here. It just doesn't exist. There is no legal consequence. And as I said, I doubt that an applicant is going to be looking through the IDA files rather than the code as to what is allowed. Usually, actually, they just ask for an application, and if they're not at the right age, then the housing is going to say, no, you can't apply. And if they say, well, I'm 50, and they say, well, look at the code, that we're restricted to only having 55. So it really carries no legal consequence whatsoever.
Okay. Are you going to represent us when that time comes? I mean, I'm not talking about next year or 10 years from now, but if that comes to play, obviously it's written in an official document. And I understand where you're coming from, sir. And I'll accept that, but I'm just I like to think forward, and I feel that the 50 description and obviously the commercial description on the resolution is effective in my eyes. And
The board determination with respect to residential versus commercial, that had to do with various definitions and how those terms have been utilized throughout the state of New York and by court determination. So that was something substantive that the board did decide on. As to the other, you can talk to Dave Donovan, and he will tell you that there is no legal consequence whatsoever, or no liability, or any type of reliance that anybody can have as a result of this versus yours. The board can, if it wants to, can certainly amend the resolution. We'd have to check whether or not it would require another public hearing, but you have the ability, and it's up to you whether or not you want to exercise it, to amend that resolution to simply change the 50 to 55. But again, as I said, it carries no legal significance, but if the board wants to do that, we can look as to whether or not you would need a public hearing to do it.
Thank you, Rick, and we'll look into that. Thank you, John. Don Berger, comment.
Folks, Don Berger, Village of Montgomery. I just want to back up John, what he was talking about as far as the changing of the meeting date. As you know, during the process for that pilot, there was great interest from the public and from the Village of Walden on that pilot. And you did change the meeting, and you did it legally and all that kind of stuff, but the problem is with it is that you never change the calendar on the website. So I, for one, when I seen it live feed on that Monday on the 8th, and then I went to the website and you still had it on the calendar for the 9th. So I don't understand why we can't, if you're going to put out a notice of change, why aren't you doing that on your website?
Connor?
You're referring to the Town of Montgomery website, right, with the calendar. So we have no access to that calendar. What we did is changed it on our Montgomery IDA website, posted it on the homepage, posted it on the public bulletin board, posted it in 2 newspapers. So we did have it on our
Well,
website.
clearly, I think you could say that, but you're in this room every single day, and you can't go downstairs and talk to Tara to have that changed. I think for the residents, generally speaking, the residents go to the website for any change. They don't wait for the Walker Valley Times for a change. They go to the website. And I think in good conscience, you're here every day. That change could have been made very, very easily. Here, I was sitting home where you probably realized I probably would have been here if I was aware of that change. And I just think that you need to do everything. You know, I don't think it hurts to make that little phone call to Tara and say, hey, listen, we're changing the meeting date. Could you change it on that website? Because that's what people go to. And I would just appreciate it if you could do that.
Thank you, Don.
May I say something, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, John Dixon.
I don't think you can assume, he's going to assume you're here. It's not up to him to decide if you're going to be here. You can't put that on him. You can't. How can you say you're gonna be here? We don't know your schedule. We don't wanna know your schedule.
If you listen to what I said.
Probably, but it's not his job
Don,
to
Don,
make sure you're
Don,
here.
Well, let John finish speaking, and I'll give you a chance to respond, please.
It's not his job if you're here or not. You can't put that on him.
Don.
I said very clearly that in good conscience, maybe you didn't hear that.
I heard good conscience.
Good conscience.
It's not up to him to determine if you're gonna be here or not.
It's the residents, not me, the residents.
Nothing was done to hide anything from anyone.
I didn't say anything was said, did I?
Don, we'll take your guidance and address it appropriately. I appreciate you bringing it up.
Yeah, I brought it up, but I don't know what's wrong with
It's,
that guy.
yeah, it's too bad that I never even thought about the town calendar. I'm watching our website, so you bring up a valid point. Any other public comment today from the audience? And we would move on to the report for the governance and audit committee meetings that have been held over the last several weeks. Connor?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So on this November 30th, we had a meeting of the Audit and Governance Committee held on Zoom, noticed on the website, noticed to the news media, on the public bulletin board. And at the Audit Committee meeting, we went over the ABO online training, some of the best practices that were recommended, and this is a training that the entirety of the board completed, which is great. But we wanted to hit on some of the key points, such as the audit committee should meet as needed to discuss the audit process that happens yearly, internal controls, and that's something we do and have done. And then the audit committee also oversees the local labor process. So we discussed Walden Construction Enterprise expected to produce 170 local construction jobs, which will be subject to the agency local labor policy, and the project will be monitored by Fellinger Engineering. I think right now the project has a company out of Middletown and Pine Bush doing clearing for the project after the IDA approvals. The governance committee also met on the same day via Zoom, and once again to discuss some of the best practices and recommendations that we've seen in the ABO training, such as being informed on best practices in corporate governance, current trends in IDA administration and projects across the state, and then also to discuss and have a broad discussion on the internal policies of the agency with respect to the yearly review and opening a discussion for our full board meeting. So those were the two meetings that were live streamed. If you had any questions, I'd be happy to answer, or we can move to the policy discussion.
Questions, comments, board members? I attended both those committee meetings and felt we covered a lot of ground, and that was subsequent to a IDA training by the New York State EDC. So it helps us in the guidance on our policies and procedures. And speaking of policies, our next agenda item is a continuation of the discussion of agency policies. We introduced the subject for discussion at our last board meeting in November, and Connor has included copies in our packets today. And you have a couple of comments, I believe, Connor?
Yes, so I included our policies in the packet in front of you. All policies are on the website under resources or financial and public documents. And you'll see most of these are foundational policies. So our mission statement, which we edited last year, the conflicts of interest and code of ethics policy, both foundational. Our bylaws, which really explain the organization of the agency, number of board members, how it's governed, foundational. The ones that we have edited are the mission statement. There's a policy with respect to evaluating projects that we edited last year that I believe is quite sufficient. There's a whistleblower policy that we would need to re-adopt, which is standard across what IDAs have. FOIL policy, standard once again. The acquisition and disposition of land, which is something IDAs can do, standard policy. procurement policy, all generally pretty standard. One policy I would like to bring up is the travel policy. As we continue to do trainings and look to go to conferences, we've been using the Town of Montgomery Capital Resource Corporation travel guidelines, but we figured it'd be best to develop a nuanced IDA policy on travel, and we wanted to bring that up to the, Rick and Ashley and I wanted to bring this up to the board for discussion, and I do have a copy of the policy. You have a copy of the policy in front of you, but it's generally pretty broad. It hits on what's important, pre-approved travel expenses, such as mileage and meals and lodging, and reimbursement for driving and so on and so forth. Pretty standard, but it's something we'd like to have adopted at the IDA level as well.
Comments, questions on the policies and specifically the travel policy, which I would hope we can get edited and ready for consideration at our January meeting. Connor?
And in my eyes, this policy is very sufficient, and it's one I've seen most IDAs adopt. I think it would be a matter of just putting it on IDA letterhead, maybe doing a deep dive to make sure if the policy is what we want it to be and adopt it in January. We can do that with legal, but I think it does cover the bases that we need as a small organization going to conferences, every so often.
Yeah,
Tom?
yeah, I mean, just some minor edits on it, obviously, like making sure it's relevant to us, right? So we don't have a CEO, we don't have a CFO,
Good point.
Yep,
basic stuff.
absolutely.
Connor, I might just ask, I believe over the last year, we revised our minority and women-owned business enterprises and veteran-owned businesses policy.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Chairman. We instituted that policy as almost a rider of sorts to our local labor policy that essentially our local labor monitor should work with the applicants to ensure they're doing adequate outreach to minority and women business enterprises as well as veteran-owned businesses. That's something that's new. I believe it's still efficient, and our labor monitor is able to administer this policy from our preliminary conversations.
Thank you. Anything else on agency policies? And we'll make final considerations at our January reorganization meeting.
Connor, can we get reports on the procurement as we move forward, whether it's every 6 months or?
Absolutely.
Makes sense.
And our procurement policy is in this packet too, in case you're looking through
Yeah,
that. but
just something that demonstrates
Certainly.
we went through the process and we have it documented.
Certainly, absolutely.
They could be part of the financial report, I would think.
Good thought.
Executive Director's report, please, Connor, and I believe the board has a copy of that as well.
That's right. So this month, been managing Cardinal Healthcare expansion and other projects that we're seeing potential in, from distribution and cannabis to tourism projects. Attended a handful of site visits in the town for businesses looking to expand, retention visits, and also going through the various year-end compliance filings, which seem to be never ending. And then also working with council to ensure the Walden Construction Enterprise documents are moving forward and closing within a specific period of time. Working with the audit committee and Fellinger Engineering to make sure the new Walden project goes off without a hitch with respect to local labor. Leading water and sewer infrastructure meetings with county representatives, working on IDA board orientation materials, which is something we don't have. It's been more so we go through the state trainings, but having an in-depth training document for new board member that we expect to be appointed this week, if not next week. And we worked with SUNY Orange to develop their first cannabis horticulture workforce training curriculum at the college. They want to be dynamic in cannabis. We worked with them at PharmaCann and did a site tour and worked on with their workforce department to put something together. Matters to take note of: the first round of zoning is expected to be adopted in late January, potentially February. Once again, all board members completed the ABO training that's required yearly, and that's something I think we should all be proud of. That's a great feat. I am hoping to attend the IDA annual conference in Albany in January, and I wanted to broach that with the board. And then lastly, next month at our January meeting, we're going to reorganize and re-adopt the litany of policies that we've been looking at, and also potentially adopt a new travel policy. But that is it for the month in a nutshell, and the conference is, once again, something I'd like to bring up to the board and see if there are any objections with me going in January.
Any comments on the executive director report? And maybe more specifically, the annual IDA conference in Albany to be held next month. I've spoken with Connor, and I think it's important he have exposure and be able to attend that conference. I believe the total cost is well under $1,000.
You need a motion.
I would say, should we have a motion on that? That we approve of his attendance there?
Yes.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, motion by Matt for Connor's approval to attend the annual IDA conference next month in Albany. Second to that motion
Second.
by Tom. Thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you. Anybody opposed, I should ask? Motion carried. Let's move on to the financial report, if we could. Matt,
Yes,
our
sir.
treasurer.
Yes. Checkbook beginning balance from last report is $307,571.10. There were no deposits for that month. We did have a reverse transaction of 10/19/21 at Town of Montgomery of $250. So the checkbook account balance is $307,321.10. Sailfish escrow, checkbook beginning and ending balance is $10,165. Walden Construction Enterprise escrow, there was no beginning balance, a deposit of $5,000. The checking account balance is also $5,000. Orange Bank and Trust, $307,321.10. Orange Bank and Trust Sailfish escrow is $10,165. Orange Bank and Trust money market is $456,004.03. Orange Bank and Trust Walden Construction Enterprise escrow of $5,000, bringing a grand total of $778,490.13.
Thank you, Matt. Questions for our treasurer? If not, a motion to accept that report would be appreciated.
I make that motion?
Motion by John Dixon, second to that. You good, Tom? Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion carried. Other business, I know we have the 2022 meetings, dates that should get approved. Those have been distributed previously. I don't know if anyone had a further thought on those meeting dates.
I think they ought to be good.
If not, I would suggest we approve them. And I believe this copy here, you have a copy, Connor. Would anyone care to make a motion to approve those suggested
I'll make the motion to
meetings?
approve the minute dates.
Thank you, John.
Meeting dates, excuse me, not minute dates.
Second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Tom. Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. The meeting dates are approved. And one other thing I wanted to mention under other business, Connor started the year with us a couple of years ago, I think in Q2, and I think it would be more comfortable to adjust his review to the beginning of each year. It's kind of a reset with our reorganization meeting. And if any board members have a comment on that, of agreement or keeping it where it is, which is in the April-May timeframe.
Yeah, I say whatever aligns with the schedule of objectives, performance objectives, works well.
Sounds good.
I think it sets a nice timetable, and as we start a new year, would be appropriate to get you on that annual review, Connor, and also our secretary. I might also note the board is in the process of doing self-evaluation of the board. So I think we're coming along on those, Connor?
Yes, just I believe we're missing one evaluation, but we submit those to the ABO. It's one of the public authority law requirements, but confidential assessment of the board, and I tally the results and send them into the state, and that's the end of that.
And for our annual audit, which will be in the first quarter of 2022, have you spoken with our accountant to kind of start to get dates set? And it can interfere with accounting business with income tax, so busy that time of year. If we can stay ahead of the curve on it, that worked well last year, I believe.
Yes, so I spoke with the accounting firm. We generally use Nugent Hauser, and we're on their radar for whenever we reorganize in January. They'll send out the letters they need to and start the process timely.
And we would confirm our selection of them to continue as our auditor in January.
I think that makes sense to have it in the annual resolution.
Yes.
Good. Matt?
This might be inappropriate at this time or not. I just thought of it, and I'm sorry to hit the board with this at the last minute, but we do have 2 employees that work for the board, or the leisure of the board, and it is December, and I was wondering if this board would consider some kind of Christmas bonuses for Connor and Megan.
Is that allowable?
I don't know.
While I appreciate the gesture very much, I would turn down any Christmas bonus, and I certainly don't want to go through any additional reporting processes, but I appreciate it.
The board really doesn't have authority to just give over its money. It's considered to be public money, and it would be against the New York Constitution to gift over anything. There are allowed, under certain circumstances, certain merit or stipend requirements, but they would have to be tied to some metric that makes sense and not just a gift of a Christmas bonus.
Fair enough. Sorry for that. Yeah,
I think the intent is appropriate, Matt, and
We'll play the Grinch.
yeah. We'll speak with you later, Rick.
But as a board member, I'd just like to say,
Yeah.
the work that Connor and Megan are doing is fantastic, so we do appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's a lot going on and a lot on our plate looking forward, so well said, Matt. Thank you for bringing that up. Anything else under other business? If not, our next meeting scheduled for January 11th, 2022, and that would be at 1 p.m. as well. And I would wish everybody a happy holidays and New Year, and request a motion that we adjourn.
I make that motion.
Motion by John, second by Matt. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Motion carried. Thank you, everybody.